You ready? Okay, so as you know, we're talking about the market crash that happened in 2008. The day previously before this happened, did anything interesting happen?
Well, I think there was a lot of interesting things that led up to the crash of the stock market in 2008. It all started, kind of my background. I've been in the financial industry since '97. I started off on the banking side for the first 4 years in '98, retail and private banking, then transitioned over to the investment wealth management side in 2002. So in 2007, 2008, I was a financial advisor at Bank of America Investment Services. And in 2007, one of the things that hit me as very interesting that didn't seem normal is that people were scooping up homes, buying homes. They didn't have to show their income. They could say stated income, so they didn't have to prove their income. They could purchase up to 10 mortgages at the same time. And people were not investing money into these homes, but they were flipping them like a month later. And what flipping means is they would buy the home, and then within a month, 2 months, 3 months, they would sell it and they would make a profit. So the housing prices were increasing significantly, like above average, above normal. And then banks were also selling these loans in package deals, but there was no way to really value those. So that's kind of where it started. And what shocked me, that was continuing for so long. Then we started to see the housing prices drop significantly. We started to see certain financial institutions have problems. Certain securities were having a hard time being valued. And then really where it kicked off was with Bear Stearns in September of 2008 when they declared bankruptcy. And Bank of America, where I was at, actually I had you were born May 12th, 2008. So when I got back from maternity leave, Bank of America let go of all of their premier bankers, a good chunk of financial advisors, and then they bailed out Merrill Lynch, which was another brokerage firm that was having issues and was about to fail.
I was actually just about to ask if you knew anyone who was affected by this. Is there anyone else that you know who was affected by this? Maybe like your friends or something?
Well, a lot of people that I knew, they lost their homes because what had happened is they had purchased their home. Let's just use an example. They purchased their home for $500,000. They did a mortgage, and then the prices dropped significantly, and now the home was only worth $300,000, even though they owed $500,000 on it.
I did read an article that said a lot of people had loans that were worth more than their houses. Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about, and that's a great point. And so what people were doing is they were filing for bankruptcy. They were letting their homes go into foreclosure, which means the bank is taking them back. Or I even saw people before they declared bankruptcy or before they let their home foreclose, they went and bought another house at the lower prices so that they still had a home and a lower mortgage, and then walked away from their other homes, which just caused a spiral effect in the housing market, which led to more problems in the financial industry because people were unable to pay back their loans, or they were not paying back their loans.
Is there something specific you would say that stood out about this situation to you?
Well, I think it was out of control that an individual didn't have to prove their income. They could buy 10 homes at the same time, have 10 mortgages, not have to prove their income. A lot of times they weren't checking credit. Basically, they were just giving money away for free. The prices were escalating at a very significant pace, which is not normal appreciation in the housing market. And then that started to spiral out of control when we realized that more financial institutions were having more problems than what we originally believed.
I also read in another article that because, like you said earlier, that you knew this was coming. Why didn't banks try to do anything to stop this before it actually took effect?
Well, I wouldn't say that I knew it was coming. I just thought it was odd and peculiar that people could borrow money at the rate that they were borrowing money and then selling their homes, flipping their homes is what the industry calls it, without putting any investment into the home and making significant money. So everyone was out. It was definitely a seller's market. You could just sell your home for any dollar amount. And then we started to see little things happen, and this is what happens in the financial industry, is that little events will happen, and that starts to trickle down, which caused the eventual failure of multiple institutions, and in addition to that, the crash of the market.
Do you know how exactly long this lasted for before there was finally a change?
So it started, really the problem started to arise in 2007, meaning that's when we started to become aware of some of the issues that were happening in the financial industry. So this was a true financial crisis, unlike, what we've had earlier this year where people were talking about a financial crisis or a potential recession. This was a true financial crisis. We had a couple of banks go under this year, but it's not a true financial crisis. They chose to do business a certain way, and then when we went into a rising interest rate environment, they were stuck. Back in 2007, 2008, 2009, it was a true financial crisis because financial institutions were lending money, at significant values on homes because home prices were going up so much. People had too many loans, they were overextended. Again, that's like what you said, they owed more on their home than it was worth.
Yeah.
And that's a problem in of itself right there. But then what that did is that trickled back to the financial institutions that were making the loans. A lot of the financial institutions actually took those loans and packaged them up into products that consumers like us could buy or that I could sell to my clients, which I did. And so those started to drop. And then people got scared about the market and started pulling their money out.
Did this specifically affect you in any way?
Well, I mean, I have investments and I lost money in my investments. I was fortunate enough to keep my job, but a lot of my friends, a lot of my partners, not only that I worked with at B of A, lost their jobs, across the industry lost their jobs, companies went bankrupt, so the companies completely dissolved as well. And so then affecting like the value of my home. The value of my home went down, the value of my 401k, my investments went down, but I was one of the fortunate people, thank goodness, that was able to keep my job, and I never lost my job during any point of the crash or recession.
I assume that your job was more difficult during this time?
It was very difficult because clients were very, very concerned about their assets. And so in my industry, really most of my clients are putting not only theirs, but their family or their business's entire financial future in my hands, and they're trusting me. And so a big part of what we do on the wealth management side of things is also behavioral finance, if you will. So making sure that people are making the right decisions, keeping people from walking off the ledge, if you will, or walking off the cliff, jumping off the cliff because they get so worried they want to pull out all their money. And when you do that, you actually realize all of your losses, like your losses are realized. And what a lot of people did is they waited for the market to correct and then get back in after the market had already turned around and come back up, and so they had lost all that difference.
I assume that didn't really work out for them that well.
No, and that's one of the financial industry is one of the few areas where people have the opposite reaction that they should. So in my industry, a lot of people want to buy into the market when it's high because everything seems great, and then they want to sell when it's low because they're scared and they're panicking, where really it's the opposite. And the example that I use is, let's say you had your favorite Pokemon cards that you were watching online, and these were really, really good cards that you really wanted, and you noticed that all of a sudden there was a sale and they were 50% off. You wouldn't go to the person selling those and say, I've been looking for those forever, I've been watching this, it's 50% off, I'm going to wait until they're full price and then I'll buy them.
Yeah, because you want them.
You want them at that lower value because then they're going to appreciate.
Plus, I assume if you tell them you want them, they're going to bump up the price because you desire that item.
Right, there could be a bidding war on it, and that's what happens with the stock market as well. The more people that are buying in and getting in, then you start to see the market rise.
Then why do people keep continuing to do this?
Because finances are very, very emotional. And so that's part of my job as an advisor, to help balance that emotion. So, and you can do some research on this, but there's different indices in the market that are always invested. They're never not invested. An example is the S&P 500. That's an index, it's a benchmark to all investments, but it's always invested. So over the last 15 years, the average annual return of the S&P 500 is 9.5%. individuals that don't have the help of an advisor and that are trying to do everything on their own, their average return is about 4.5%.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a difference of 5%. And so that's what I'm here to help manage so that clients aren't making the wrong decision at the right time.
Yeah.
Or the wrong decision at the wrong time, excuse me.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Do you know when it ended exactly, or?
Depends on who you ask.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, once you hit the bottom of the market, that 2008, 2009, that's when it starts to come back up. So the economy was still in recession. There was still a number of issues, but the market typically is a leading indicator. So the market started to pick up way before the economy was healthy. And so that's typically the way that the market will work. It will have it priced in. That's why people are in recession. They're not in their jobs. Companies are going under. The market hits a low, and then they're panicking, getting out, and then that's when the market tends to come up at that point. So it's just having that discipline to make sure that you're making the right decisions when it comes to your finances.
Yeah. Is there any other specific situations you can maybe relate to this, like similarity-wise?
Well, I've been through Y2K, which was when we were going into the 2000s. So in 1999, everyone was paranoid that the computers wouldn't switch over and that they would lose their money or that the banks would lose their balances, and people were rushing into the banks to take out cash. People were literally taking out cases of cash.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell clients, I can print you off a statement as of December 31st of 1999, and you can take this with you. That way you have proof of your balance, because if you walk out and some criminal robs you, your cash is gone. It's not insured. Well, it's in the bank, it's insured. Another example is right when we had the pandemic, coronavirus. March, it came out, 2020, that we had this coronavirus, and then it started to spread, and the market took a huge, huge drop.
Why is that?
Because everyone was paranoid about lockdowns, businesses shutting down, what was going to happen with our economy, what does this mean for society, not only domestically but globally.
Mm-hmm.
How is this going to really impact us in the long run? They were working on the vaccines, everything was in motion, so the market completely crashed. But then within a few months, even though the economy and the coronavirus was still here and we were still trying to get through the pandemic, and we had, then fast forward, we were having the riots and different things happen all around the country. The economy wasn't healed yet, the market wasn't healed yet, but the stock market itself had already rebounded and had one of its year's best returns ever.
Yeah. Would you say your viewpoint on these situations has changed over the years, or no?
I think for me, because I've been in the financial industry for so long, I'm numb to it personally.
Mm-hmm.
So when the market crashes, I'm trying to find a way to invest more money, because I'm like, woohoo, everything's on sale. Where a lot of people don't have that mentality, where I want to buy when everything's on sale.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe when the market hits its top, maybe I'm taking off some of those gains and putting it into another place that's fallen.
Mm-hmm.
But my clients don't necessarily feel that way.
Yeah.
So my approach to my clients is different. And one of the questions that I ask my client is, I know if you open up your statement and it's up 20%, you're going to be happy. But if you open up your statement and it's down 20%, how will you feel?
Yeah.
Like, will you be stressed? Will it be bringing you anxiety? And that will help me determine what the most appropriate recommendations are for my clients. And those will change. Those will change. I could have a young, aggressive client, but there may be certain times in the market where I'm like, okay, let's put some conservative investments in here. Let's add some guarantees. Let's add some protection. So for me, I feel like, I use the word numb, I feel like over the years I've just become more numb, because I'm used to dealing with these situations, and I deal with it on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And it is stressful, because I know my clients, like I mentioned before, are essentially putting their entire financial future in my hands and trusting me with that. And so that's a large responsibility. It could be a large burden, and it can be very stressful, but I love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I've changed as far as my knowledge and my understanding and how to walk clients through the tough times. It's easier during the good times, but how to really be there when it's much more challenging.
Speaking of change, this will be the last thing before we cut it off. But is there something you would have done differently now that you have more knowledge about this situation for the 2008 crash?
I would have invested a lot more money after it happened. I would have bought more properties after it happened
Yeah.
and not waited, because those investments today would be worth a significant amount.
Yeah.
I did keep my house because I bought a house when I was 25, 26, and I maintained that even though at one point my mortgage was more than the value of my home. I just kept my home. I didn't walk away. But yes, I definitely would have invested more money, and I would have had some different conversations with my clients, preparing them ahead of time. But I did a very good job of keeping my clients and keeping the relationships.
Sounds like a lot of stress.
It was because I was on maternity leave.
What's
Had
maternity
you-
leave?
That's when I left. I had you May of 2008, and that's right when the market was getting ready to fully crash. So maternity leave was busy.
Yeah.
Well, I was on maternity leave, so I was working on maternity leave. So, yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.